In a peaceful suburban neighborhood where houses lined up like picture-perfect postcards, Sarah's life looked enviable from the outside. She was married to Daniel, a well-respected businessman known for his success in real estate. Their home was large and immaculate, their cars polished and expensive, and their social image spotless. Sarah herself was admired as the perfect wife, always graceful, always supportive of her husband, and known for hosting community events with charm and elegance. But behind the pristine walls of their home, a secret darker than anyone could imagine had begun to grow. Daniel had a son from a previous marriage named Alex. After losing his biological mother in a tragic accident during his teenage years, Alex had drifted emotionally. Though Daniel provided for him financially, their relationship was strained, marked by awkward conversations and distance. When Alex left for college, he hoped to escape the weight of his past. But after struggling academically and emotionally, he returned home at the age of 22, uncertain about his future. Sarah, who had married Daniel 5 years earlier, welcomed Alex back with warmth and compassion. She knew what it felt like to be lost. Her own childhood had been unstable, giving her a soft spot for broken people. In Alex, she saw someone who needed guidance, structure, and care. What began as casual conversations in the kitchen soon transformed into late-night talks about life, loneliness, and grief. Sarah felt needed in a way Daniel never made her feel. And Alex, for the first time in years, felt truly seen. As the days turned into weeks, the closeness between Sarah and Alex deepened in ways neither of them expected. Long hugs lingered a little too long. Accidental touches became intentional. What they both dismissed at first as emotional dependency soon crossed a line neither of them knew how to step back from. Their connection grew physical, hidden behind locked doors and hushed voices. Both convinced themselves it was temporary, a way to heal, a way to feel alive again. But with every stolen moment, the danger intensified. They tried to be careful, only meeting when Daniel was away, erasing traces of their encounters, and keeping conversations strictly casual in front of others. But no secret stays hidden forever. Someone else had noticed the shift. Daniel's father, Edward, was known to be strict, cold, and controlling. He had always been suspicious of Sarah, considering her an outsider who married his son for wealth. He paid frequent, unannounced visits to their house, often under the excuse of checking on the family. One night, during one such visit, Edward let himself in quietly. He intended to surprise Daniel with old family papers, but what he stumbled upon shocked even him. From the shadows of the upstairs hallway, Edward watched as Sarah, flustered and nervous, quietly exited Alex's bedroom in the middle of the night. Her hair was messy, her clothes disheveled, and her face pale. She didn't notice him standing silently in the darkness. Edward understood immediately what was happening. And instead of confronting her, he quietly slipped away, his mind already calculating how this secret could benefit him. Sarah and Alex had no idea that their already dangerous secret had now fallen into even more dangerous hands. What they thought was hidden love was now a loaded weapon, one that Edward intended to use, not just to destroy, but to control. And from that moment on, the fate of their entire family was sealed, though none of them knew it yet. The perfect life they had presented to the world was already crumbling, piece by piece, under the weight of their hidden sins. Edward spent the following days in calculated silence. While Sarah and Alex went about their secret lives, believing no one knew their shame, Edward meticulously planned his next move. Unlike Sarah, who acted out of emotion, Edward was cold, methodical, and ruthless. His mind wasn't clouded by shock or anger. Instead, he saw potential. In Sarah's mistake, he found a rare opportunity to regain control over the family he felt slipping away from him for years. Edward had always believed Daniel's marriage to Sarah weakened their family. She wasn't from their social class, and Edward suspected she had married his son for security, not love. Watching her betray Daniel with his own stepson confirmed every dark thought he'd ever harbored about her. But rather than expose her immediately, Edward understood power lay in patience. He began gathering proof. Using the spare key Daniel trusted him with, Edward revisited their house when they weren't home. He installed hidden cameras in discreet locations: Alex's bedroom hallway, the kitchen where Sarah and Alex often talked late at night, and even near the guest room where he suspected their meeting sometimes occurred. Within days, Edward collected undeniable evidence: videos, photographs, and audio recordings, all showing Sarah's betrayal in clear detail. Sarah, completely unaware she was being watched, carried on her dangerous affair. Each visit to Alex's room, each whispered conversation in the kitchen, each glance exchanged across the dining table, Edward captured it all. To him, it wasn't just about punishing Sarah. It was about re-establishing dominance over Daniel's household. If he controlled Sarah, he controlled the family. Then, Edward made his move. He invited Sarah to his house under a simple pretense: to discuss property documents that needed her signature. Sarah, though uncomfortable around her father-in-law, couldn't refuse. She arrived, anxious and nervous, believing the meeting to be routine. But the moment she stepped inside Edward's cold, dimly lit study, she sensed something was wrong. Without emotion, Edward laid out the photographs on the table one by one. Images of Sarah exiting Alex's room, screenshots of late-night visits, even a short clip showing her reaching out to touch Alex's face gently in the kitchen. Sarah's entire world collapsed in that moment. She couldn't speak. She couldn't even breathe. Edward, calm as ever, explained what he wanted. He had no interest in ruining her life publicly, not yet. Instead, he offered her a private deal. She would follow his instructions without question. She would pass along sensitive family documents from Daniel's office. She would influence Daniel's business decisions subtly, redirecting certain contracts towards Edward's dormant companies. She would distance herself from specific friends Edward disapproved of, ensuring no outside influence interfered with his plans. In exchange, Edward would remain silent. Sarah begged him for mercy, but Edward showed none. He knew he had her trapped. If Daniel found out, her marriage, her life, and her reputation would be destroyed. The scandal would make headlines. Her own family would disown her. And worst of all, Alex's life would be ruined too. Left with no choice, Sarah agreed. Over the following weeks, Edward tightened his grip. He sent her instructions via handwritten notes slipped under her door. He monitored her every move. He controlled her like a puppet, and every time she thought about resisting, all she had to do was remember the photographs locked in Edward's safe. Sarah had exchanged her freedom for silence. But what she didn't yet understand was that Edward had no intention of ever letting her go. The secret that once bonded her and Alex now chained her to a man even more dangerous than her guilt. Asterisk. Sarah's life quickly transformed into a waking nightmare. Every morning, she woke up fearing what demand Edward would place on her next. Her once comfortable home now felt like a prison, every corner watched, every move monitored. She avoided Alex whenever possible, leaving him confused and hurt, but she couldn't risk even a word of comfort without Edward finding out. Fear consumed her, but disobedience wasn't an option. Edward's control over her deepened day by day. His demands weren't just about money or documents. He wanted power. He ordered Sarah to retrieve confidential papers from Daniel's locked office, documents related to upcoming property deals and hidden investments. She knew stealing from her husband was wrong, but Edward reminded her through his cold letters that exposure was only a single decision away. His threats haunted her, turning her into a shadow of her former self. She handed over everything Edward requested, each envelope of stolen documents feeling heavier than the last. But Edward wasn't satisfied. He began controlling her personal life as well. He forced her to distance herself from old friends, people who might have offered her emotional support. He dictated where she could go, who she could meet, and even what charities she should stop contributing to. Slowly, Sarah became isolated, with no one to confide in and nowhere to seek help. Her health deteriorated. She lost weight, barely slept, and moved through her days like a ghost. Daniel, though busy with work, began noticing her change. His once lively, warm wife now seemed hollow and withdrawn. He questioned her repeatedly, but she gave no answers. Every conversation between them ended in silence, with Sarah terrified to reveal the truth. Alex, too, was struggling. Confused by Sarah's sudden distance, he spiraled emotionally. Believing she regretted everything between them, he withdrew into himself. He spent long hours alone in his room, avoiding both Sarah and Daniel. The boy who once sought comfort in Sarah's presence now felt abandoned and rejected. What he didn't know was that Sarah was sacrificing her bond with him to protect them both from Edward's growing grip. Edward, however, watched everything unfold exactly as he intended. With Sarah under his control and Alex broken emotionally, Edward believed he had secured his dominance over the family. His son Daniel unknowingly ran his business according to Edward's hidden plans, while Sarah acted as the unwilling accomplice. Each time Sarah hesitated to follow an order, Edward reminded her of what he held: the evidence, the photographs, the recordings. Sarah considered escape many times. She thought about running away, confessing everything to Daniel, or even going to the police. But the fear of public shame, the destruction of Alex's life, and Edward's constant threats kept her paralyzed. She lived in a state of helpless submission, every step dictated by Edward's cold strategy. Despite his calculated victory, Edward made one mistake. He underestimated Daniel. Daniel wasn't blind. The changes in Sarah, the missing documents, the shift in business dealings, and even Edward's sudden interest in family affairs raised silent alarms in his mind. He began quietly watching, collecting details, and connecting the dots. He didn't know what was happening yet, but he was certain something was terribly wrong. Sarah, trapped in Edward's invisible cage, didn't realize that the walls of her secret were beginning to crack. Her silence, once a shield, was turning into a noose tightening around her neck. And somewhere deep inside the house, Daniel's growing suspicion was about to expose the darkness no one was prepared to face. Daniel's suspicions grew heavier with each passing day. His once stable household now felt unfamiliar. His wife, Sarah, had become distant and fragile. His son, Alex, withdrew further into silence, avoiding family dinners and conversations. His father, Edward, suddenly had unusual influence over their business decisions. None of it made sense, yet all of it felt connected. Daniel's instincts told him that something was happening right in front of him, something he wasn't supposed to see. He began quietly observing. At night, while Sarah believed he was asleep, Daniel watched her pace nervously in the dark. He noticed how she flinched at the sound of her phone buzzing. She checked the front door constantly, as if expecting an unwanted visitor. When she thought he wasn't looking, she hid letters inside her dresser, burning some of them in the fireplace late at night. Daniel didn't confront her. He knew whatever was happening, it was bigger than just a simple lie. Then came the missing documents. Daniel discovered several confidential files from his office were gone, files he never touched, yet Sarah had access to. His trust wavered, but he still couldn't piece the puzzle together. Why would Sarah, his wife, steal from him? The breaking point came when Daniel noticed Edward's sudden financial success. Edward, who had been struggling with his dormant businesses, now appeared to recover overnight. Large sums of money began flowing through his accounts. Deals Daniel thought were his own successes quietly redirected towards Edward's companies. Daniel felt betrayed, but also confused. His own father using his business without explanation? It was more than just coincidence. Determined to uncover the truth, Daniel decided to follow Sarah one evening. She had told him she was meeting a friend, but Daniel knew better. From a distance, he watched as she drove towards Edward's house instead. Sitting in his car, hidden down the street, Daniel watched her walk to the door, pause nervously, and then disappear inside. For over an hour, he waited out. When she finally emerged, Sarah looked broken. Her face was pale, her movements slow, her eyes hollow. She didn't notice Daniel's car as she drove away. His heart sank. Something terrible was happening between his wife and his father, and now he knew it wasn't just about business. Fueled by confusion and dread, Daniel made a decision. The next day, while Edward was out of the house, Daniel broke in. Using the same spare key his father once used to violate his privacy, Daniel searched Edward's study. What he found turned his stomach. Locked inside Edward's old cabinet were printed photographs. Images of Sarah slipping out of Alex's bedroom late at night. Screenshots of private moments between them in the kitchen. Handwritten notes, demands, threats, commands, all directed at Sarah. Daniel's world shattered in that instant. His wife wasn't just betraying him, his father had known. And worse, he had been using it to manipulate and control her. Daniel felt sick, rage mixed with disbelief as he tried to process the evidence before him. His family had been living in a nightmare, and he hadn't seen it. His wife, trapped. His son, broken. His father, the puppet master behind it all. Taking the evidence with him, Daniel left Edward's house with a single plan forming in his mind. There would be no more waiting, no more silence. He would confront both of them, and this time, the truth would destroy the lies that had consumed his family. Daniel returned home, carrying the evidence that shattered his world. For hours he sat alone in the dark, staring at the photographs and letters spread out before him. Every piece confirmed the truth he didn't want to accept. His wife, the woman he trusted, had betrayed him with his own son. And his father, the man he once respected, had exploited that secret to control them both. But now, Daniel knew everything. And he was ready to end it. He decided to confront Edward first. The next morning, without warning, Daniel stormed into his father's house. He dropped the photographs onto the dining table, forcing Edward to face his own manipulation. But Edward showed no guilt, no shame. Calm and unapologetic, he admitted everything. To him, controlling Sarah wasn't a crime. It was a necessary punishment. He believed she deserved everything that happened. In Edward's cold, calculated mind, he hadn't destroyed the family. He had saved it from further disgrace by keeping the secret under his control. Daniel saw his father for what he truly was, a man who thrived on power, even at the cost of destroying his own son's life. Without hesitation, Daniel called the police. Edward was arrested on charges of blackmail, fraud, and coercion. As officers led him away, Edward showed no emotion, staring at Daniel as if he still held the upper hand. But Daniel no longer felt fear. The monster was gone. However, the hardest confrontation still lay ahead. When Daniel returned home, he found Sarah sitting silently at the kitchen table. She looked exhausted, hollow, as if she had already accepted her fate. Without raising her head, she listened as Daniel explained everything he knew. He expected anger, excuses, or even tears. But Sarah simply nodded. She didn't defend herself. She didn't deny anything. Instead, she confessed everything: the late-night visits, the emotional confusion, the moments of weakness that turned into something worse. Daniel felt no satisfaction, only devastation. While he believed he would explode with fury, all he felt was emptiness. The woman he once loved had become a stranger. He realized then that sometimes betrayal doesn't come with rage, but with quiet grief. The confrontation ended without shouting, without blame. Just silence. But the final blow came when Alex, who had overheard everything, ran from the house in shock. He disappeared for days, leaving Daniel and Sarah terrified that the broken boy might never return. When the police finally found him, Alex was safe, but emotionally destroyed. The affair had left scars far deeper than either Sarah or Daniel could comprehend. Soon, the case went public. Sarah was charged with abuse of trust due to her position of authority over Alex, even though he was legally an adult. Media outlets picked up the scandal, and their once perfect family image crumbled. Under public judgment, Edward's crimes were exposed too, but that offered no comfort. In the end, Sarah faced legal consequences and public shame. Edward was sentenced to years in prison, where his manipulative mind could no longer control anyone. Alex underwent therapy, trying to rebuild what little of himself remained. And Daniel, once the proud husband and father, was left to piece together the shattered remnants of his life. The perfect family everyone envied had never truly existed. It was a fragile illusion, hiding secrets darker than anyone could imagine. What began as a hidden affair ended as a tragedy that destroyed everyone involved.